What's going on, guys? As you know, there's been a lot of conference tournaments going on in the mid majors. Power conference brackets have been getting released, and this weekend we saw four teams already punch their tickets to March Madness. Those conferences were the Ohio Valley, Missouri Valley, Atlantic Sun, and the Big South. And let's just start off with the first game here. I thought we could just take a little bit and kind of summarize what all happened, the teams that have punched their tickets, and then set aside some time at the end here to rant about why the Missouri Valley should be a two-bid league, despite what Lenardi and everybody else is saying about it. So on Saturday, as tradition, the Ohio Valley Conference is always the first conference to punch a ticket to the big dance. The tournament this year is being held in Evansville, Indiana again, and the finals were between Morehead State and Little Rock. For Little Rock, this is just the second season in the Ohio Valley, but it's a much better turnaround for them. Last year, they finished 10 and 21 overall. They finished 6 and 12 in conference. This go around, much better. They were 21 and 11 overall going into this game, 14 and 4 in conference. For Morehead State, this is nothing new for them. They finished this year 25 and 8, and they were also 14 and 4 in the Ohio Valley. For them, this is the fourth NCAA tournament appearance since 2009. It's their first one since 2021. So, again, this win for Morehead State was nothing out of the ordinary. And quite frankly, Morehead State has put together just an absolutely excellent season thus far. They really only had one, what I would call just really bad loss, and that was to USI, who was the eighth seed in the Ohio Valley tournament. They lost to USI 80 to 73 earlier in the conference play. They also lost 61 to 48 to SIUE, but that one's a little bit more stomachable. UT, they lost to UT Martin 88-82, and then they lost to Little Rock 69-68, and their only matchup this season between the two teams that were in the finals. So really, yeah, they had 14-4, and the problem is the Ohio Valley is a pretty low ranking conference. So, you see those four losses and you think, oh, wow, okay, they're not that good. However, let's look at their other four losses that they put together. So you might remember this game from earlier in the season, but they actually almost beat IU at Assembly Hall. They probably should have won that game, but they ultimately lost 69-68. But there were three losses that were out of conference were to number 24 Alabama. They lost 105-73, lost to number 3 Purdue 87-57, and they lost to Penn State 74-51. So all four non-conference wins or losses all four losses were to power conference schools. So, I think that kind of comes back to a lot of schools will say, oh, we don't want to schedule those or like whatever the case may be. But honestly, a lot of the time these games do set up mid-major teams, and especially in those lower conferences like the Ohio Valley, to better set themselves up for when they go into conference. So, having scheduled that type of conference or non-conference schedule and then still finishing 25 and 8 is very impressive. Actually, I should say they were 26 and 8 after this win. So again, Morehead State will be heading to the tournament. They are led by Riley Minix, who posts 20.6 points, 9.9 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.3 steals, and 1 block per game. In this game, Riley Minix dropped 26 points on 10 of 16 shooting to go along with 7 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. This guy's an absolute stud. There's just not much else to say. Little Rock was starting to cut back into it towards late, but it was pretty much Morehead all the way. Morehead was up by 5, 30, at 32-27 going into halftime, but Morehead started pulling away. Again, Little Rock was like trying to make a run there at the end, but it was pretty much all Morehead State in the second half. So, congratulations if you're an Eagles fan, you're tuning into this. I know Morehead has built a lot of tradition. The coaching staff there has done a tremendous job. Yeah, I mean, we could tell people, you might not know this, but Broom, who's now in Auburn, actually started at Morehead State before he transferred to Auburn. So, there's a lot of guys that have come through there recently that are just elite players, and they're really building something special there. And it's tremendous for the Ohio Valley to still have teams like this after they lost Belmont and Murray State and Eastern Kentucky. Being able to have somebody kind of step in and fill that void is really good for the conference overall. So let's dive in then to maybe arguably the most surprising person to punch their ticket to the big dance, which was Longwood. I did not see this coming in the least bit. So Longwood entered the Big South tournament as the 5 seed. They were so their non-conference record. You might not know this, but they were actually very solid in the non-conference. Their conference record, however, it was lackluster to say the least. They finished 6 and 10 in the Big South. Overall in the season, though, they did finish 21 and 13. So I think that goes to show how well they played, and arguably they actually could have opened the season on an absolutely insane run. Had they not lost to St. Bonaventure the first game of the year, they lost 73-69. I will say this: their non-conference schedule, if you look at it on paper, is not exactly that difficult. They played two A10 schools. They played Dayton and St. Bonaventure, and then the rest were pretty much lower tier conferences outside of Milwaukee. They saw teams like NC Central and Lamar and Bethune, and so they didn't exactly schedule the toughest non-conference among these other schools comparatively. And then when they got to conference play, I think that kind of bit them a little bit, but maybe it didn't. Looking at this now, because really, you know how this goes. All that matters is that you peak at the right time. So coming into the tournament, Longwood had won four of the last six games. Went through a Presbyterian, UNC Asheville, and High Point. So let's talk about that for a second. They beat the top two teams in UNC Asheville and High Point coming into this weekend. Their losses were a 6-point loss to Radford and a 3-point loss to Gardner Webb. So you could arguably sit here and say, like, wow, okay, Longwood really peaked at the exact moment they needed to. So in the opening night, in the quarterfinal, they defeated Winthrop 69-56. They then went on to beat High Point 80-79 in overtime. So if you missed that game, it was electric to say the least. The Big South tournament is actually being held at High Point's new arena. So obviously High Point was going to have the advantage for obviously being on their campus, having all their fans and student section and everything in there. But Longwood went in and got the job done. And it was a great overall effort for everyone. They had three of their starters had 12 or more points. Sapala had 17 points coming off the bench, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks. It's just a really all around great effort. And you can't sit here and argue and say that the refs did anything here because Longwood was 20 of 28 from free throw and High Point was 20 of 27 from free throw. So really, Longwood just got the job done on the defensive end here because they held High Point to just 11 of 33 from 3-point range. Meanwhile, they shot 8 of 15. So again, just a tremendous effort here. I mean, you look at the box score; it's pretty much the same across the board in all their categories. So really, they were coming into this morning playing UNC Asheville. They were one of the first games of the day at 11 a.m. Central Time, and I had no anticipation of the Lancers winning this game. UNC Asheville had been playing well all year. Everybody thought it was going to be between High Point and the Bulldogs, and well, we see how this goes. It was just all Longwood from the start. All Longwood from the start. That Longwood outscored UNC Asheville 42-24 in the first half, and then continued outscoring 43-35 in the second half. Final score was 85-59. It was just the UNC Asheville played awful. That's all that can really be said about that. UNC Asheville shot 5 of 22 from three. Overall, they shot 21 of 55 from the floor, compared to Longwood shooting 31 of 52 from the floor and 7 of 13 from three. Free throws were about kind of similar. Longwood shot more. They shot 16 of 23 comparative to Asheville shooting 12 of 14. It was just a terrible performance for UNC Asheville. Drew Pember only had 14.6 rebounds, 2 assists. He was the only guy that scored in double digits. Nobody else got even close. They had 3 guys get 8 points. It was just poor effort in the conference finals for them. And for Longwood, this is now the second time out of the last 3 years that they went to the NCAA tournament. And thankfully, their overall record is saving them here a little bit from being kind of an outlier. I think people are going to look at this and not necessarily pay attention to the conference record or at 6-10. So they're going to see 21-13, think, oh, okay, Longwood kind of stood a chance here. And this is just the surprise of the season so far in terms of conference tournaments. Yeah, there's only been 4, but this is just a shocker in terms of Longwood coming out and winning this thing. So props to the Lancers, props to all you fans out there. I know there's a loyal fan base out there that supports Longwood. So yeah, the first 2 teams were Morehead State and Longwood. So take it with that as you wish. Let's move on to the Atlantic Sun. So as you know, the Atlantic Sun was pretty chaotic in this conference tournament. We saw Queens upset. We saw Lipscomb get upset in the first round. Eastern Kentucky went out in the first round. So it was kind of some shockers that were going into the semifinals. Jacksonville nearly beat Stetson. Jacksonville lost 87-88 in the semifinals there, and Austin Peay had to also fend off. Those had to fend off North Florida. So sitting here thinking about it, you're like, wow, okay, the Atlantic Sun was pretty chaotic this go around. So this time around, it was Austin P and Stetson in the finals, and it was going to be a knockdown dragout from the very beginning here. Stetson was the 2 seed, Austin P was the 4 seed, and there was no disappointment here at all in this game. So I'm not going to lie, this game kind of got overshadowed. This is also kind of what I hate about having multiple conference tournaments going on at the same time in terms of the finals. So this actually started at the same time as the Missouri Valley final between Indiana State and Drake, and my love for Missouri Valley kind of took over there a little bit. And I was trying to switch back and forth as much as I can in this game, but what I did see was wait for this stat line. So Jalen Blackman posted 43 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists for Stetson. Freaking insane in a conference tournament. The guy shot 12 of 22 from the floor, and he was 14 of 17 from free throw. So if you're an Austin P fan, you're going to probably be pretty disappointed with this loss because if you look at the free throw totals, Austin P shot 24 of 27. Stetson shot 32 of 42. So let that sink in for just a split second there. There were 69 free throws shot in this game. Between the two teams, there were 49 fouls called. That's freaking insane. So whoever's ref in this game, Jesus Christ, you need to chill on the whistle. Um, but anyway, regarding from that, Stetson shot an outstanding 10 of 19 from three compared to Austin P shooting 5 of 20. It was just a great game all around. It was coming down to the wire. Ultimately, the three and free throws kept Stetson ahead of this one. And this is actually Stetson's first time heading to the NCAA tournament in school history. So we're going to mark them off the have not been to the tournament yet board. Great win for Stetson. It was really just a great conference tournament overall for them. Stephon Swenson hit some clutch shots in their last win over Jacksonville. And then obviously Blackman stepped up today with the freaking outstanding 43 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. So you can't really complain about this one. It was a great game. Kudos to Austin P. Again, I kind of wish that the NIT hadn't changed rules. I'm not saying Austin P would be in the NIT. Their record was just 19-15 overall, compared to Stetson being 22-12 overall and 11-5 in conference. But regardless, Austin P is a very good program. A lot of history there as well, and they have a lot of great guys. Out of their starters, they had 4 out of the 5 starters get 11 more points, and Cy Witt had 28 points, 10 rebounds, 2 steals. They had 2 guys get double doubles because then you also had Desi Jones have 17 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds. So he was on triple double watch. It was really an Austin P team. The ASUN was just really good overall this year. I mean, you could have made an argument for Stetson, Eastern Kentucky, Lipscomb, Austin P, any other schools to kind of come in and dominate this one. I think obviously Jacksonville and Queens were kind of shockers in this tournament. Jacksonville in particular almost went to the finals. Kind of actually choked a little bit at the end of that game. So it was a great Atlantic Sun overall. Congratulations to the Hatters on heading to the tournament for the first time in school history, and I wish you all the best of luck if you're a Hatters fan out there. So, all right, let's get to the elephant in the room here with Drake and Indiana State. So, if you missed this game, I am sorry. You missed arguably one of the best games all year. If you're watching at certain points and you aren't watching the whole thing, you might be like, well, what are you talking about? But let me tell you, it was an excellent game. So Drake pretty much kind of hopped out early. They started off the game 7-7 from three. So when I say they came in with the foot on the gas, they came in with the foot on the gas, and it was on the floor. So Drake started out on fire really early in this one. Tucker DeVries is just a freaking stud. He's going to be an NBA player. He has got the body, he's got the skills, he's got the athletic ability. So there's no doubt that this man's going to go to the NBA. But anyway, so it was all Drake from the beginning. Indiana State kind of looked lost on the defensive end. They were not shooting very well from three either. And if you've watched Indiana State or listened to me talk about it or listened to anybody talk about them, Indiana State lives or dies by a three. So ultimately today they shot just 29% of three, so I think you understand where these results are going. So after the first half, Drake led 45-32. And then the second half, Drake got up as many as 18 points. So it looked like Indiana State was going to be dead in the water. And the last thing Indiana State needed was to get blown out by Drake in the conference final. Because Lenardi's out here still advocating that Indiana State does not have enough quad one wins to get into the tournament. I think that is still ridiculous. They still have a really good resume. They are 28-6 on the season, 17-3 in conference. There is no reason this is not a tournament team. So, however, if we look at this, Indiana State completed an 18-point comeback, including taking the lead on an Isaiah Swope 3-point shot, which he got fouled, and hit the free throw to give them a 74-73 lead. So, first of all, I want to shout out Isaiah Swope in particularly because this got transferred from the Ohio Valley at Southern Indiana. He was highly sought after by multiple Missouri Valley teams and a lot of mid-major schools around the area. He is a Castle grad out of Newburgh, Indiana. Dude's a stud. Completely went underneath the radar. Uh, Pretty much single-handedly helped Indiana State get back into this game. Jason Kent did a great job on the board as well, and Conwell had a couple clutch offensive rebounds towards the end of the game as well. Robbie Avila looked kind of off in this one. Ended up shooting just 1 of 7 from three. So after you complete the comeback, it was pretty much a back and forth game from that point on, and it was exactly the matchup that we all knew and we all wanted. So pretty much the last 5 minutes of the game looked like you take the first 35 minutes and you just throw it at the door because it was the battle we all wanted to see. And it's a battle that we all wanted the selection committee to see as well. So from that point on, it was just battle back and forth between those two teams. Ultimately, Drake did prevail in an 84-80 victory here. So congratulations to the Bulldogs. You're going back to the tournament again. This is the third Missouri Valley Conference championship game that you have been to in a row, and this is now the second time that you've been back to the tournament out of those three. So congratulations to the Bulldogs fans. You all deserve it. Drake is such a stellar team. Coach DeVries is just a phenomenal coach, and obviously having a son who has NBA talent kind of helps because he can be your guy you can just go to consistently. There's a lot of other guys on that team that make it so excellent. Brody had 17 points, 8 rebounds. Aiton Wright had 17 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. And they shot 11 of 18 from 3, so obviously kind of slowed down after the 7-7 start. But still, regardless, I mean, just dominant. And I also want to shout out the refs in this one for about the first 38 minutes of this game because really they let the boys play, and I think that's what mattered here. Drake only shot 13 free throws compared to Indiana State only shooting 15 free throws. And if I mention back to what I mentioned earlier in the other game where there was 49 fouls called, there was only 30 called in this entire game, and obviously there was some fouling that happens at the end of the game that always inflates that number. But really, I think you could argue there's only maybe 2 questionable calls. They were both on Indiana State towards the latter part of the game. One was really cheap, in my opinion. There was a ball that was kind of going out of bounds off Drake. It was in the last 30 seconds, and Indiana State got called for a really cheap foul because, in my opinion, it was cheap. Is it a foul? I mean, yeah, but they weren't calling that all game, and then all of a sudden in the last 30 seconds you're calling that. Like, that's a little questionable. But anyway, let's just acknowledge this was a phenomenal game. If you missed it, go watch the highlights. I highly recommend it. These two teams are NCAA tournament worthy. I don't give a crap what anybody says. These two teams deserve to be in Selection Sunday. I don't want to see a freaking SEC school with 18 wins or 17 wins getting in over Indiana State, who has 28 wins and 6 losses, who we all know can make a run to the Sweet 16. I think today what happened was Robbie Avila got tired. It is really hard in these tournaments playing 3-4 days in a row. And for these big men, especially, given I'm not just sitting here trying to make excuses, I'm just telling you what I think I saw on the floor. And it looked like Robbie Vila was tired. If you watch some of his 3-point shots he missed, he dang near airballed a couple of them. They were hitting off the front of the rim. He just looked exhausted. And, especially, again, for these big men. But, Brody, you could say came out. He didn't look tired. Posted up 6 of 9 shooting, 5-6 from free throws, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals. So I'm not trying to make excuses here, but I do think that's ultimately what happened. Indiana State looked pretty tired, and when they're not hitting their threes, it's a death sentence for them. Regardless, though, this is still an NCAA tournament team. They deserve to be in March Madness. They can make a Sweet 16 run. I think Drake can make a Sweet 16 run as well. Drake has all the pieces that you want in a tournament team. They have bench pieces. Garland can come off the bench, give you very solid minutes, and give you a lot of production. And their starting 5 are just excellent because you could have Enright or Ovington, who they only combined for 14 points today. And then Brody and Wright and DeVries. And like I said, DeVries is an next-level player, so this is everything that you want in a team. But the same thing here for Indiana State. Indiana State's problem is they don't have a bench, so they don't use their bench at all. They pretty much take their starters, run them in the ground. Conwell played 40 minutes. Larry played 39, Kent 35, Avila 35, and Swope 30. So that is also some of the problem with why I think Indiana State ran out of gas here, was just because they used their starters so much that when you're playing 3 games in a row, you're going to be dead. Your legs are going to be tired, your arms are going to be tired, you're going to be wore out because you're playing physical basketball in the Missouri Valley. And Indiana State had to fend off Missouri State, UNI, and then out Drake. So you're talking about Northern Iowa and Drake back to back. That's tough enough. And then Missouri State, it's got some big men who make it really tough on you. So again, kind of coming back to Avila, Avila had his work cut out for him these last 3 days. You're fending off some very athletic people in this conference. You're going to be dead tired, especially if you're already playing 35 plus minutes a game. I do think that might be, if Indiana State is granted a bid into the tournament, I think that's going to be their Achilles heel, and making any type of deep run, I think they're just going to get really tired quickly. I think, the only downfall of this team. Otherwise, it is excellent. I still say Drake can make a run. I know all the attention's been on Indiana State this year, but I think Drake's been kind of getting a little hidden. And I think because they had some bad losses, they got beat absolutely demolished by Belmont. I think that one kind of just scarred him, because really, I think if you take that one out, there probably wouldn't be a question about a two-bid league. But I mean, their net rankings, this isn't updated yet, but Indiana State coming into this game was ranked 26th. And they just lost to Drake by 4 in Arch Madness, and Drake's ranked 47 in the net. So it's not like it's a bad loss. I mean, this is for Drake. This is a quad one win. And for Indiana State, this is what, a quad one loss. I get mixed up really bad on those. I think it's quad one loss. So I get really confused based off the neutral court things. Anyway, regardless, so big win for Drake because they're going to move to 4-1 in quad one. So even if Drake had lost this one, I think you could probably argue, based off their quad one, quad twos, Drake would have been 3-2 in quad one, 3-3 in quad two. So I think ultimately the unfortunate part of this is we know how the selection committee goes. We know they favor power schools, power conferences who are mediocre at best over these mid-major schools. And even if they do, they're probably going to put Indiana State up against freaking Dayton or something, and then just completely screw 2 mid-major programs out of there. But regardless, they need to be in the tournament. We just know how that goes. I think there's gonna be a lot of dependencies on what happens in these power conference tournaments that happen this week. A lot of these are getting kicked off tomorrow or Tuesday, so make sure to tune into a lot of those. It's gonna be a really important week for teams like like Indiana State. Same thing's going to happen in the Sun Belt. You have 2 teams that arguably should be in the tournament, in App State and James Madison. Drake and Indiana State have better resumes than both those schools. However, still kind of the same boat where it's like you got 2 teams that probably should be in the NCAA tournament. I think the Missouri Valley's got a better shot than the Sun Belt does. I think the Sun Belt's pretty much diminished after App State lost to Texas State. But regardless, let's all keep our fingers crossed. Next Sunday, we hear Indiana State's name called alongside Drake. This is a 2-bid Valley, just no question. Anyway, that was a lot of talking in a matter of 23 minutes. I didn't even intend for this to be 23 minutes. I just kind of wanted to hop on and dump a lot of my thoughts into this. Anyway, so this is the first episode in quite a few weeks. I kind of got a little bit infrequent about this and just been posting. I appreciate y'all that's been following on Substack. We've had a lot of activity pop up on there, so make sure to stay tuned in. I've been doing game previews of all the conference tournament championships. I'll be doing that throughout the rest of the week as the mid-major tournaments are starting to wrap up, and then we start about to dive into the American and A10 tournaments. So we'll be doing some previews about that as well. So make sure to subscribe on our Substack, and if you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for all the latest updates. So thanks, and let's go to the Valley.